Hello there, kia ora. Welcome to this week's Campaign Kōrero. We're going to sit down and take a look at what's been making headlines over the last week or so in terms of the election campaign, and then I'm going to sit down and take you through how to lay a formal complaint through the Advertising Standards Authority, just in case you get some misleading political advertising, like I did, so I'll show you how it's done. But first, let's jump into the headlines. At the tail end of the election year, Congress, Labour has announced its latest policy to reset the Apprenticeship Boost scheme for 2 years. The scheme currently pays employers $500 a month to take on apprentices to make sure that they can earn and learn at the same time. The coalition reduced the scope for budget cuts in 2025. 27,000 people are expected to benefit from the change, which is being pitched as an offset to the loss of skilled tradies to Australia under the current government. National this week quietly dropped a policy from its 2023 campaign which would allow people to use their KiwiSaver to pay for rental bonds, a move widely criticised at the time by economists. Housing Minister Chris Bishop has said the idea was a, quote, nice but too difficult one to implement. Labour leader Chris Hipkins has said he plans to scrap the, quote, morally bankrupt MSD staff incentives, which sees frontline workers being punished for not retaining low numbers of people being put into emergency housing amidst the largest ever number of people now finding themselves homeless in the country's history. Said Hipkins of the issue, people shouldn't be denied the support that they need and that they are entitled to and that they meet the criteria for just because the government set a target and our MSD are incentivising or disincentivising their staff with particular performance measures. Conservation Minister Tama Potaka last week announced plans to backtrack on legislation that would enable the sale of up to 60% of Department of Conservation land after widespread public outcry. He has written to the Select Committee looking after the bill to inform them that this will be removed and requested more time for submissions on the bill, which still does include controversial clauses around commercialising DOC. The police have warned the government that continuing budget cuts demanded to make savings for tobacco company kickbacks are making the duties of police unsafe because of a lack of backroom support needed to ensure their safe operations on the front line, telling ministers, quote, this underinvestment has created systemic weaknesses. The ACT Party this week revealed gun fanatic Nicole McKee as its incoming number 2, while also announcing a new policy that would force medical certification for health-related benefits only be accepted from MSD-approved designated doctors, in a move that beneficiary advocates have described as lacking compassion. A Tuesday report from the Auditor General into David Seymour's school lunch program has found it severely lacking in planning, inadequate monitoring, and little evidence of reduced waste or nutritional requirements being met, constrained by strict budgetary constraints despite concerns raised directly to the minister, which were repeatedly ignored. The Taxpayers Union, which spearheaded campaigns to stop Three Waters infrastructure upgrades under the previous government, which in turn fed into exponentially increased anti-Māori sentiment being pushed by the most extreme people in the hard-right ecosystem and a large number of coalition candidates that shaped the last 2 local elections and general election, has released their rates dashboard tool, which local elected members have already called misleading and lacking detail. According to the TPU, average rates are double the current rate of inflation, and adding in now separate water infrastructure costs, it averages out at a 9% rates increase nationwide. But don't worry, this isn't their fault. They clearly had nothing to do with getting rid of Three Waters. Mirroring issues around its 2023 campaign, the ACT Party has again dropped a candidate that appeared to have not been vetted properly. In 2023, ACT lost half a dozen candidates who held views too extreme for the party that was willing to hide a pedophile's identity to secure an election win. This time, the Kinipuru candidate Yang Zhong has quit after it was revealed she was a member of the Chinese political group with links to the ruling communist regime. Said party leader David Seymour, we can't just close our eyes and hope the CCP don't take the opportunity to gain a foothold in New Zealand. 3 years ago, before it seemed he had his eyes closed and the CCP tried to gain a foothold in his party. Right, and that's it for this week's election update. Don't forget you can actually get this delivered directly into your inbox, top 5 things every week. You just need to hit the subscribe button that is linked somewhere in my bio. And if you want more information as we get up to date with things like fact checks and what's going on with the campaign, you can head to election2026.co.nz for a whole bunch of data there just to help you out with how to navigate the election. Right, let's go into my kitchen and I'm going to explain to you why we're going to be doing an ASA complaint. Hello there, welcome to my dining room where I'm checking the mail that I've got today. It includes this from Starship Hospital because they're currently in the process of trying to fundraise for a new paediatric air ambulance. It has to be set up really specifically for the needs of young people because that's what Starship do. They haven't got the funding from the government like, the road cone hotline or the tobacco companies. So they're out there asking for help. You might be able to help them, I'm not sure, I try to. But that's not the only thing I got in my letterbox. I also got this flyer from the National Party. Now, because a flyer is a paid form of advertising when it's delivered into your letterbox, it's covered by the Advertising Standards Authority, as well as parliamentary services. And if you've got a complaint, it sort of goes in two ways depending on what the actual complaint is. This complaint will be about fairness and accuracy, which is something that the Advertising Standards Authority does monitor. Because when we take a look inside, well, the first thing that they try and do is say that National has reined in wasteful spending, saving taxpayers $43 billion to date. It actually depends on what kind of numbers you're looking at and how they measure it. Overgale versus Overgale X, completely different measurement types. One takes debt from ACC out, for example, but they do end up with very different numbers around how much wasteful spending the government reckons it's reined in, considering we're actually now spending more than we did under the previous government. But the second claim here is that they have brought down inflation and interest rates by cutting government spending, meaning Kiwis' average mortgage repayments are down by as much as $10,000. Now, this is just demonstrably false because the government does not set interest rates or inflation rates. They are set and measured by other organisations like the Reserve Bank or Stats NZ. And there's a whole bunch of factors that come into play, not just what the government itself is doing. They cannot take credit for this, and they've admitted as much under various OIAs, but it's a long time claim that particularly the National Party has done, that they're making the economy better by bringing down interest rates so mortgage payments go down. That's not how it works at all. But then if I take a look a little bit further into this, it reads cost of living relief April 1 changes. It includes superannuation, family tax credits, working for families, student allowances and job seeker support. Now, they're very careful in this one because they are just saying this is what people get now. And it's really important to remember National cannot take credit for these because these are changes that are legislated and have been for many, many years. The way they're worked out is a little different. Super, for example, is worked out as an amalgamation of a couple of different measures like inflation and interest rates so that it's relatively consistent. But other benefits, they were re-indexed when this government got into power and they were taken away from wage growth and re-indexed to inflation, which the government keeps trying to bring down. Remember, inflation is supposed to go down and wages are supposed to go up. So this government has specifically made decisions to ensure that people on those other benefits, their amount of money that they're getting to help them in the worst of times is not enough to keep up with wage growth that's happening in the country. And you might have seen their ads recently where they're like, oh, check it out, wage growth for the next 4 years is supposed to go up faster than, something else. Wages supposed to go up faster than the cost of living, something along those lines. Who knows? It's probably bullshit because it comes from National. But because there are demonstrably false things in here, we can take this to the Advertising Standards Authority. So, let's see how you go and lodge a complaint with the Advertising Standards Authority when there is demonstrably false political advertising. Okay, so the first step is actually the easiest. You head to asa.co.nz and this is the page that should pop up. This is the Advertising Standards Authority webpage. They have 4 things that they need to check off with you first before you get started, and they're really, really straightforward. So the first one is just checking that you're aware that this is just about advertising. They can't take on complaints about, say, a dodgy sale or a gambling website or something along those lines. And you also need to make sure you're aware you're not a competitor who's just like, I want to bring down the competition. So they need you to make sure that you know what it is that you're doing. Step 2 is just about making sure that you can identify what it is that you are complaining about. Not just I want to lay a vague complaint because something I don't like isn't to my liking. There has to be something that you can physically point to or be able to provide proof of in the process here. And the third check's just to make sure that you know that you're going to have to leave your contact details. You can't lay a complaint anonymously, and that's mostly just to make sure that you're not a competitor who's complaining about a product from the competition that you want to take down. You need to be open about this particular part, but those details are kept private. They're not ever published publicly beyond your name. And the fourth thing that they check before you start is whether or not you're aware that this complaint ruling will be made public on their website. So if you're not comfortable with that, then it's just a double, triple check to make sure that you really, really want to go ahead with the process that you're starting now. And then you can make a start on the complaint itself. The first thing they're going to do is ask you who the advertiser is. In this case, it's the National Party. And then they're going to ask for what type of product or service it is that they have. In this case, political parties are considered advocacy. And then it'll ask a question about what type of marketing material you're looking at. This is what they call an unaddressed mail offer. So it's basically a brochure, and then you can pick brochure on the list of drop-down options that pop up in here. Right, next up you have to attach some images of the misleading advertising or the form in which case it's been misleading or the issues that you've got with it. So here I've uploaded 3 pictures of the brochure at 3 different positions, the front page and the first claim, and then a whole page of claims that they imply that they are the ones who have got the results which they have not. Then the next step is to actually add details to the complaint itself, and this is where you can explain why the advertising is misleading in some way, or at least false, because it may not be deliberately misleading, depending of course on what it is that you're talking about here. When it comes to this, it is deliberately misleading. So there are a few issues, particularly with these claims around expenses. The operating expense allowance went from 1.3 to 2.1 billion between 2025 and 2026, and the total financial year spending went from 180 billion to 183 billion between 23 and 25. So that's clearly not accurate. There's also the fact the Reserve Bank actually decides interest rates by setting the OCR, and legally the government is not allowed to have anything to do with that. And inflation rates are actually set by a whole bunch of different things, and they are measured by Stats NZ. And those factors that lead to inflation rates, well, they've been decreasing internationally because most of it was around COVID supply chain issues, and that's obviously eased off a little bit. And the reason that we're seeing inflation numbers actually spike again a little bit has also been because of international inflationary issues around the issues in Iran and the Strait of Hormuz. So these are clearly false claims. And then on top of that, I've also added in a bit about the implications of saying these changes in terms of what they're doing for benefits and super payments and stuff like that. They're implying that this is their choice, and it's not. It's all actually legislated by government. Then you need to put in your details. I'm not going to share my details on here. Some crazy person's already shared them with something like 600 different email outlets that got sent to me saying apparently I support Winston Peters. This person needs some serious mental health help. But that is completely beside the point here. I'm not putting my details up online, and you shouldn't do that either. But you can share them with this organization, which is a regulatory body. They need that information to make sure that you're not a competitor who is just trying to bring down the competition, that your complaint is actually legitimate. And then finally, there's just a bunch of waivers to make sure that you understand what it is that you're putting in there, that you understand what the process is, and that you're not, from the competition, as I've said many times, to try and beat down on whoever it is that the complaint is about. After this has been submitted, you'll actually get an email receipt from the ASA going, hey, we got your complaint, leave it with us, we will deal with things and get back to you. And the length of time it takes to do the process, well, that actually kind of varies. So don't hold your breath for an answer tomorrow, but you should hear back from the ASA after they've done a bit of investigating. Now, I should point out that when it comes to political advertising, there is quite a bit of leeway here. So who knows if this will actually achieve anything. And they can't fine people who have been misleading. All they can do is recommend that they change something or apologize for it before they put the information out, and just make it known that the issues that they're dealing with were misleading or that people were confused by it. So it's a small tool, but it is a useful one, particularly when we can prove exactly how much disinformation is being spread, particularly by the National Party, but by many members of the coalition. As we go into the election, there are very few tools for us to actually be able to keep them honest. And this is a really simple one that hopefully you've learned a little bit about just by sitting here and going through the process with me. All right, that's it. I'm going to sign off now. Long day, and I will catch you guys all next time. So look after yourself, ka kite anō, and until next week, have fun, and please check your enrollment details Hit the vote.nz if you haven't done so already to do that. Hey, thanks for sticking around till the end of the video. While you're here, why not hit that like button or share the video or even subscribe to the channel. You could even become a paid YouTube member so you can see things released in advance, you get access to some exclusive content, and like all these awesome people, you get to have your name at the end of the credits as well.